I realized that there was quite a few fitness books out there, but there wasn't one that was focused on abs. So I found a little niche. There was not
So
that many that was
you're the
focused on
ab
abs.
guy.
There's a lot of like getting hench and big. I guess I was the abs guy for a little while.
Welcome to Happy Millionaire,
A show about how to make profit with a positive impact.
and stay happy along the way. So tell us a bit about why we're doing this podcast and why you asked me to co-host it with you.
Yeah, sure. Look, I think where we are now, obviously podcasts are a great format to communicate. And I think what's been really missing is like a place which is really full of fun. So it's like with us, we've got two friends having a good chat and at the same time providing that deepness, right? I think right now there's a big trend, very long podcast, a lot of depth, but like that fun banter piece is missing.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good medium. And I think, the first thing that people ask themselves when listening to this is, do I really need to listen to another podcast? And I think your attention is so important. It's your most valuable currency that you have. And so if we're going to drill down as to why people want to listen to this podcast, what are the sort of top things that people are going to gain from listening to two blokes chat, and hopefully, have guests on as well, but like, what are they going to get from me and you?
Yeah, I feel like, I guess through the various companies I've built, I feel like I've probably learned a few different methods that have worked and not worked. So I've tried and tested. This is like bringing joy to work is probably been the theme or project that I've been most passionate about in the last few years. And I've really delved in, read loads of books, met loads of people. And I feel like there's so many obvious things that can be done, which aren't being done. And I feel like this is a great medium for us to share it. And at the same time, as mentioned, like bring on some incredible guests, some of my friends and some of your friends, and really try to pick out those bits which hopefully people can like really use in their work.
From the learnings of your experience now setting up your, is it third company, fourth company? I don't know how many companies you've done. Actually, we're going to drill down on that today.
Third one.
Yeah. If you're counting all the others, you're probably well into double digits. But looking at the big wins, you've got enough of that like raw experience to know things that you've done right and things that you could have done better in the past.
I feel like each one of my companies is becoming, I guess, done from a more purposeful way and like from the ground up. Yeah. Like, getting the right people, getting the right culture in place, getting the right leaders. So I feel like each company is becoming better, which is good. It means I'm getting better. But I guess look, through that process, it's not been easy. Like I made a shit ton of mistakes, and I think I'm really excited to obviously share those as well.
Yeah. And tapping into your vulnerable side, man, because, you're going to be sharing those mistakes pretty honestly. And I think that's going to lead a lot of people to ensure that they don't make the same mistakes. And also like wherever you are, whether you are a business person, whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you are working in a startup or an established company, I think everyone can learn some tips from this. So on this episode, we're going to drill down into a bit about you. People who listen to this might know, or maybe they don't know, I don't know, but you're one of the UK's most successful tech entrepreneurs, right? You built 3 companies now worth over 100 million. You've invested in tens of companies, something like 30 companies. But it didn't start like that. So tell us a bit about your upbringing. Where did you get that entrepreneurial flair, that streak?
I think I'd say it's probably like a few things come to mind. Like obviously the key part for all of us is our upbringing through our parents. And my upbringing was probably slightly unique in that my parents were refugees that came from Africa. So in 1972, lots of Indians were exiled from Uganda. So they all were, they all had to go to different countries. And my parents both came to London. And that was quite difficult for them because they had like, they had homes back at home. They had their own path in career and they had their own friends, and like really that all just got taken away from them. So they came to London and with nothing, and they couldn't even speak English. So, for them, they really had to work hard to really pave their own career. And I feel like through them, like I think the work ethic came, like really like the reason why I probably work so hard is probably down to them. And also I saw them even hustle. Like my dad was a banker And he used to even do some side stuff. Like I remember he used to like sell watches on the side just to make a bit more money. And my mum was a nurse. She's like one of the most selfless people. And even she was like trying to make some side money, and like she was selling bags. And I think the other interesting thing was, I don't know why, but like I actually went to a lot of schools from like the ages from like 3 to 30. I think I went to 5 different schools.
Really?
And that meant that I went to a lot of different schools. I went to loads of state schools, like really ghetto schools, to then some private schools. I had a bit of a weird mix. I don't know what my parents were thinking. I think they thought, hey, let's just experiment and throw them in different schools. And that was really interesting because each time, yeah, exactly. And I think like if I look back, that meant that each time I go into like a different school, I had to like make new friends. I had to really, in a way, I could create my own new personality. And that just meant that I could probably at the same time like build relationships with different people.
I didn't know that. There's going to be a few things I think on this podcast that because we've known each other for quite a few years now.
It'll come out, right?
It will come out. Yeah. The first time we met was like 5 or 6 years ago through Amit, who we haven't introduced yet. He's our sort of like researcher, podcast producer. Guj, as he's affectionately known, or Gujulicious.
Gujalo, he's got loads of nicknames.
He's got loads of nicknames. Yeah. He'll be popping in every now and then. But he introduced us, and I remember your energy was like really high at that point. You know, you're a successful company or whatever. You were about to go to New York and all these other things. But like, it's interesting hearing about your childhood, because I imagine that sort of bravado wasn't naturally there. It's something that you've sort of had to build up over time. So just to double click on the sort of the parent story there, I think so many parents have got this like similar story of how they came to the UK with like a stupidly small amount of money in their pocket, like £30 or like 54 quid or something. Like, why is it?
It's mental happen, right? But I think for like being a kid in that, like it's hard because obviously sometimes you don't have money, but at the same time you see the journey, right? You're watching a show in front of you of someone, I guess, making a living in their own way. So I think it's pretty cool.
And so when do you so you saw your parents like hustling away, your mum selling bags on the side of like being a nurse in the NHS, and you know your dad selling watches and stuff. I don't want to give the impression that they were hustling. I know your mum's
so random.
I just can't see your mum selling bags.
They did it for a few years, to be fair. I know. My mum's like, it was a really small part, but I think they did it for a little phase. But I just remember I was like, go, Mum, high five, go for it.
And your dad, you tell me the story about your dad, like getting the paper with the rich list in stuff when you were a kid, and that sort of inspired you. Tell us about that.
God, so it's so funny. Like every single year, my dad, one of his like favorite days in the whole year, probably might be his favorite, was when the Times would release the rich list. So it'd be the Sunday rich list. And like I remember every single day he would on that day he would walk to the newsagent with a massive grin, like literally ballet dancing to the newsagent, get the paper, come home, sit in his conservatory for literally 2 hours. You don't see him, and then at some moment like he'd whistle for me and go, "Hey Jay, quick, come in," and then I'd have to sit with him. Like I'd have to put my computer game down, come sit with him for a little bit, and then go through this rich list. And every year this happened. And to be absolutely honest, I wasn't really there. I was just invisible, but I was there. I wasn't really listening to him. But then eventually, I remember when I was like 11, I was like, okay, let's actually look at this rich list. And I went through it, and I realized quite quickly when you go through the rich list, like there was a pattern. There was a really simple pattern that most of the people on the rich list were entrepreneurs. And at that moment, that was probably my first seed plant, because I realized, okay, to be on the rich list, you got to be an entrepreneur. And I remember the massive smile my dad would have when reading this rich list. That made me think, okay, if I get on this rich list, he's going to be really, really happy. And at the same time, I'll make him happy. At the same time, I guess I'll be in this rich list. So I think that was the first moment. And I knew I had to be an entrepreneur to be on that list. So I feel like that's where the first like seed got planted.
When would this have been? This would have been like early 90s. I can't imagine there were many desis on the list at that point. Is that right?
Yeah, it's probably like mid 90s. There was a few. There wasn't many, but to be honest, I just thought, look, honestly, it was weird. I just looked at it, it can't be that hard. Like, I don't know why. I just felt this weird when I looked at it. I thought, why not? Let's give it a crack.
Yeah.
So it became this like weird thing that was like planted at the back of my mind, and just really, really random.
It's weird. There's so many things in that. There's like a mix of you wanting to be successful, but then also the ultimate truth and ultimate root of why you wanted to be successful is making your parents happy, right? Like putting that smile like your dad
Yeah, no,
had on
definitely.
his face, and thinking, okay, put the dots together, become an entrepreneur. Dad clearly looks up to these guys or women. I can imagine like that would have been something that was deep seated in your psychology behind wanting to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's weird when you go back, there'll be some weird events that happened in your
Yeah.
life, and that was my one. Like and do you know what? I only realized it probably in my 20s. Like I forgot about it. It was just, I don't know. I think it was in my 20s when my dad just showed me the list again. I went, God, I've seen this list. And then suddenly
Yeah.
it was like you go in this little matrix bit, and you go, and then you go back and you're just like, oh wow, it's oh, that's what happened.
The Matrix. Yeah,
That's
love
why
it.
I'm here. So
Yeah.
yeah. It's like literally, it's like, oh yeah, wow, okay, that's where that weird thought of me being an entrepreneur came from. So
when you were
yeah.
a teenager, like let's say you're 16, 17, like did you have any side hustles before you went to uni, or was it like, okay, I'm going to go to uni, smash out a degree, and then figure out what my business venture
Yeah.
is going to be? Like, what was the thought process?
Yeah, I did a few little random things. So before, like, there was like PlayStation and Nintendo, I had this little gadget that would allow me to like copy games. That's probably not cool, but
Oh,
yeah, that was
really? No way.
a common side hustle for people. Yeah. So I used to like, get games and music. So I had this like system that could basically copy stuff. So that was something interesting. Also, during the time there used to be like Pogs and Go-Go's. I don't know if you remember those, that era.
Yeah.
So I realized there was a lot of value in some of these. So I used to just do a lot of exchanging, and I knew which ones were worth a lot. So I did make some good money through that. So.
Mate, it's so funny. Thinking about, everyone probably remembers that kid at school that burnt CDs for everyone. Like everyone was into like hip hop at the time, and
so I guess
like,
I was
yeah, you were one of those basically. And I think back to the guy who was burning CDs at my school, and he's become really successful entrepreneur since then. He's in tech as well.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
All right,
interesting.
So I'm sure I may have met him through you.
Yeah,
or not.
yeah. There's a thread there. Okay, so you're doing this little side hustle at school or whatever, but you go to uni. Like, what? Why did you go to uni? Like, this is the time, like, when people were dropping out and like starting their own companies and stuff. Like, what made you go to uni in the first place?
I saw a few of my older cousins. They basically went to uni and they all got these like, really great jobs. So I felt that was the path. And to be honest, I think, at that time, probably like a lot of us, we just get push. And that was the path I took. I studied economics, which was probably the most random degree, because economics is basically, if you don't know what you want to do, you go for economics. So I think that's the one I chose. And then I said, it's basically kicking the can. I'll figure out a bit later what I'll do. So that's basically what I did. And I actually went into finances. That's my first gig after uni. So yeah, that was pretty boring times, but yeah.
No, I reckon you probably learned a lot. I think like you'll look back at your uni days and probably see what elements were stewing that led you to become the entrepreneur. I mean, like, what did you have any hustles when you're at uni, or was it not until you actually got like a finance job?
At uni, wasn't really much. I think the most like a quick way to probably make money at uni was to like sell like nightlife tickets and doing all that. So I did attempt to do it once or twice, and I was like, God, this is not for me. This is so much effort. And plus, I actually wanted to enjoy uni, so I didn't hustle that much like during uni. I think I just probably made the most out of uni, just going out and having fun and avoiding doing any work. So that's basically what I did.
Yeah, same with me. So take us, I'm just going along the chronology of like your life here. So you're at uni, you've done uni, you partied a lot. I just added the partying in there, but you go into fitness. So what was your like first hustle as a finance bro?
Yeah. So basically, I was working on the trading floors of a few banks, which was like a really intense job. But honestly, I just knew it wasn't right. It just didn't feel right, me being there. I just didn't really enjoy the culture. And I think like, as mentioned, I came from this weird upbringing that my dad was in business and my mum was a nurse, and she was really loving. And that loving piece, I just didn't see enough in the finance world for me. So I knew it wasn't right. So then basically, I started doing some side things, and I think I mentioned to you, my first project was, so I was massively into fitness. I was like a health freak, and I was going to the gym, like, I was one of those little hench guys, and had the six pack and all of that. And people used to come up to me and go, "Hey, how did you do that? Like, what have you, what are you taking essentially?" But I was like, "No, I don't. I actually have I have a method." So I was basically one of those like random folks and I basically wrote an ebook. I wrote a book, sold it online. And this was like, now in the, this was probably like around 2010, 2012, like around that period. And I was selling these ebooks and they were, honestly, I was making a lot of money. I was selling this ebook. So I had to create a website and, learn how to market it. And next thing I know, I'm like, every time someone downloads it, I'm making like 20, $30. So that was my first hustle.
I very random. I only found out about this whole fitness book idea the other day, and when you told me, I was like shocked, and I wish we had that reaction on this podcast. But so you did this.
Yeah, I know, that was funny.
You did. And I'm not laughing because you're like unfit or anything like that. You're still fit, but like you're not like. I don't look at you and be like, mate, how did you do it?
Yeah.
I'm not like texting you like giving you secrets.
Yeah.
Not to say you're unhealthy, but like, so hold up. So ebook, right? 2009. How did you even know you could do an ebook?
It was weird. I was starting to Google, and I realized that there was quite a few fitness books out there, but there wasn't one that was focused on abs. So I found a little niche. There was not that many that was focused on abs. There's a lot of like getting hench and big. I guess I was the abs guy for a little while. So then, I basically focused on that niche. And that was like my first random venture. And I just realized that creating an ebook wasn't that hard, and creating a website wasn't that hard over time. And then really I thought, okay, that's one niche. Okay, let's find other niches. And like, that's basically where I started.
So that's your ebook. How did you market it? How do you sell it? Like, how do you start? Like what?
Yeah, it was like, honestly, I was just learning on the job. So I created the website. My brother even started helping because he's actually way better than me and that sort of stuff. And then, okay, now you've got a website. How do you now get people to view it? So then I learned about buying Google AdWords, at the same time doing like SEO. So you're trying to make sure you rank high on the search. So I basically had to learn all this stuff, like while having a full-time job. And so I was working like literally when you're working the trading floor, you're working from 7 till 7. This was like my bit to relax.
I just want to like double down that for a second, actually, because you're working 7 to 7. That's a crazy amount to work. And yet you're doing this stuff on the side. So you must have found like some joy in what you were doing. Like how did you capture that? It couldn't have just been like the monetary value of what you were getting. There must have been something else in that.
I realized when I was in finance, I didn't have this vehicle to like be like creative. And that was really missing. So I think that's what it was. It was like the first time my mind could just free flow and do, really what it wanted to. And that's what led to it. So I was just like, it was just because I could decide what the branding would look like. I could decide how it should be marketed. Like when you're working in like a corporate job, you are very confined.
Yeah.
Whereas this one just allowed me to express myself. So I think that's what it was. It was that freedom that I was probably really striving or really wanting to have. And I got to do it through this random bloody six-pack book. So, so it all started.
So that's interesting. So, all right. So you got this ad book. Clearly it's, have you kept up with it? The ad book and
no. All of the, honestly, that stuff. Once my other business started kicking off, I had to decide where I focus. So
what made you go from like an ad book? Because the natural progression in my mind is like you start an ad book, you start a community, you start selling the supplements, you then create a brand out of it, and then all of a sudden you're like the Maxi Muscle, and you started it back in 2010. So like something must have happened along the way that made you sort of split paths. So what was that?
Yeah, I think for me it was strange. It's like I enjoyed that subject, but it really didn't like excite me. I didn't feel like a full connection to it, because like to me, like my fitness was just one small strand of my life, and I don't know, it just didn't feel like I want to focus the rest of my 10 years in this area. So I think that's what came out. And then but what I did enjoy was the creative process of writing a book and selling it online. That's what I did enjoy. So that marketing piece, I love that piece. And that's what probably led me to like create other ebooks. And yeah, that's probably where it came from.
So hold on. So you went into different ebooks. So what were the next ebooks?
I love the way you know me, so you know where this is going, but it's all good. So the next, so basically, after doing a lot of so there's this thing called Google Keyword Tool. You can go in there and you can see what words people are typing.
Man, people are stupid. They know what Google Keyword Tool is.
Yeah, some people do, some people don't. And then you can see how many times the word's getting searched. And basically, one of the hottest trending words was college dating. So right now, obviously, everyone's going to college and everyone wants to learn about dating. They thought like this is the moment when like Google's really, really taking off as well. Obviously, Google still like was big then, but everyone realized, okay, you go on the internet, you can start searching for stuff. And what we found was there wasn't that much content out there on college dating. So at that moment, I then started like really searching through the whole internet, trying to find these college dating experts with the idea of writing a book together with them. And that's what happened. So my second book was a college dating book and it's mainly focused to people in the US. But yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm getting the feeling you don't really want to talk about that anymore. So let's move on to, so you're doing these ebooks, you're getting some wins. I'm assuming you move out of this ebook sort of industry. Like how does this sort of converse into Yieldify? Because Yieldify is like, I'll let you explain exactly what Yieldify is to the listeners, but it's pretty far removed from writing ebooks on different subject matters like dating.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, definitely. I think through the journey of like writing the books, what I learned about was marketing, and that's what I really got fascinated about. It's like, wow, okay, so you've now essentially got a visitor to your website through some form of ad, and now they're on your website. How do you make them convert? Like, how do you convert that visitor to actually buy your product? And for me, that's what really excited me, because it's really the psychology of like, okay, what is the written material? What's the picture? What's the image? Like, is there a specific source that they have to come from so that they're more likely to buy? And like that whole piece of understanding the human. So it's, I guess, the psychology piece, but at the same time, taking that information to then work out what to show, what's that right message. Like that's what excited me. And that's what really led to Yieldify.
I just want to talk briefly about the inklings of what Yieldify was at the start, right? So you've got this wonderful blue sky thinking vision, of like how everyone has a personalized experience, but that ain't MVP. That's not version 1. Like what was how did you even go about, because you're an ebook seller, you know how to build a website. No offense, you're not a coder or a techie. You got a really good idea. How do you actually manifest that into a product that then you can ring up a corporate and say, this is great, mate, you gotta get this on the site?
No, it's definitely like, honestly, I was learning on the job. So what I realized was I needed to build a software. This wasn't a simple website to build a software. And during those times, you either recruit an engineer to join your team to code with you, or you could outsource it to like an agency, or use like a website like, at that time it was like Elance, but now it's called Upwork. You can go and then you can find these engineers. And we actually opted, because we didn't have as much budget, we thought, hey, just throw it to an outsourcer, see what happens. And that's what we did. And we gave a timeline, we spec'd it out, and we said, look, go do it. We interviewed like 10, 20 engineers to like, everyone was super excited about the idea. So they all pitched to us. And then eventually we chose one person. And then, we just said, hey, look, this is your budget. Please create the magic. and in the background, we were then creating the like sales decks, all the material, and we were like selling before we had a product, because at the same time we were weirdly trying to work out, do people actually want it?
When you give advice to entrepreneurs about that, do you tell them to do that, to sell the product in to get validation before you've built it?
100%. I even think now, like, get to a point where go speak to your customers, like even like make mock-ups in you can use tools like Figma, and you can like design like an app or your website quite quickly. And I say, like, create that experience, like create a really simple experience, and then see if people actually like it. Because, sadly, it's really, I know, because I've gone through like probably 13 ideas before Yieldify. Like most ideas don't work. Like we think they work, and we really want them to work. And we go ask all of our friends, and they go, yeah, great idea ever. But just, I feel like you have to just speak to your customers as quickly as possible and ask the really shitty, hard questions, which, it's hard.
It's an important point, because I think I agree. I think it's really important to speak to your customers. I think it's really important to sell the vision to them. But in the current wake of what we're seeing within Silicon Valley, a whole bunch of companies that are being shown to be fraudulent. There's like a fine line between faking it till you make it and
That's
actually being
hard.
able to execute
Yeah, yeah,
on something that you truly believe you have the skill set and capacity to do.
yeah. No, definitely, it's a tricky dance, right? I think one thing I've learned is that just, at the start, it's okay to really test out whether the product's working. But like once you are serious, you sign a contract or you raise money, like then it's like serious, it's official. But at the start, like you can play the little dance, try to figure it out. Um, as time goes on, you'll have a network you can speak to validate the idea. But yeah, it's like you at the start is this weird like dance where you're just like, yeah, faking it to make it. But once you do, like, yeah, the time ticks, it starts now. So yeah.
Yeah. On top of that, not only do you have to have the confidence to, be able to sell the vision to corporates or whoever your customers might be, you've got to have that
Yeah, yeah.
self-belief that you can actually engineer that for them. Whilst also
Hmm.
dealing with just getting punched in the face by the market. Like I'm assuming you wouldn't have had like sales straight
Yeah, yeah.
away, or you would have had setbacks. You would have had people telling you that this ain't going to work. And like, I don't know what your financial situation was,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
were you like self-funding this? Did you have to like sell assets or like, move back home with mum and
Yeah,
dad?
yeah.
Like what was your situation?
While I was building Yieldify, I did actually move back to my parents. So yeah, it was like, I was living in a nice flat and I just said, look, if I'm serious about this, I need to conserve my money. And so like the first versions of Yieldify most of it was like self-funded, raised small amounts, but it wasn't much. And I think
Who'd you
that
raise from?
was the right move for me. It was honestly like family friends, just family and friends. Like it was a very small amount.
But I think that's
It
like
was like probably like
tougher.
20, thirty thousand
It's
dollars.
really tough to do when you're taking
Yeah.
money from like friends and family who trust you, that like people talk
Yeah,
about the friends
yeah.
and family right now, like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
friends and family, it wasn't that hard. But like, I think from a founder's point of
Yeah,
view,
yeah.
that's really, really important.
Like my friends and family, although it wasn't like much, I just kept them all in the loop of what I was up to. Like they were curious. I was like this random dude who was just like, literally quit their job in finance and was hustling. So like they were curious, right? I think the whole family just thought I was either an absolute weird person who was just gonna be this bum basically, or might actually make it. Like it was one of the two, right? And so yeah, I just kept people up to date. I think one thing is I've just realized one thing I guess which is a quality of mine. I've always been really open, and I think therefore I usually just tell people all the hard stuff that's going on, and I think people that probably builds a bit of trust with folks as well. So
Yeah. I think the transparency element will definitely come back to as a theme when creating joyful workplaces. So, all right, I just want
yeah,
to
yeah,
clarify this. So you're self funding it, living at home.
yeah, yeah,
You're lucky in that you got a co-founder, right? So your brother. We haven't really mentioned Mills that much here. So like, what was
yeah,
your
yeah.
brother going through? Did you have like these like deep and meaningful chats, or were you like pumping each other up? Like, was like one day you were hyper and then he was low, or like, but like, what was your relationship?
Yeah, no, we're both very, very different. So Mills is like he loves the like product engineering side. He just loves that. He loves building. He's not a coder, but he loves product and understands how it's built. And I love the human side. I love interacting with people. I love the process of getting a product and putting it into the market. So like the go to market, like that's the bit which I love. So we've got this really awesome mix. We're both very different. But yeah, we went through loads of ups and downs. Like the good thing is like me and him, like, yeah, we probably have an argument. It's not actually that often, like probably once every 3-6 months, which is like worth talking about. The otherwise is just like little nibbles. Cause the good thing is like we know each other so well and we work so well together. So that bit's the easy piece. But yeah, we've definitely had some really challenging times and tough times. Like I remember there's one period where like I just didn't know if I was going to make it. And I said to my brother, I said, look, I just don't believe in it. And I was being a bit of a rebel. And I said, look, I'm just going to hide away and run away because like I'm going to hide. Like this is so stupid, right? But so my way to like basically say I'm not excited was that I basically said, look, I'm going to sit because my parents have gone for a massive holiday and we're both in my parents' living room. We're working. I said, I'm going to create this little blanket fortress in the living room and I'm not interested in Yieldify. I just want to hide away from it. So literally, I know this sounds so weird and random, but for like 2-3 days, I just built a blanket fortress. I'm like 26, 27. I'm just like hiding with like on a sofa, and I said like, I'm not going to eat. I don't believe in this, and he said I believe in it. And we're going back and forth. And the weird thing was, yes, because I read like loads of people could basically survive without eating for loads of days. So I thought I'll try that. But weirdly, I'd go shower. So that was one thing I did do. So I did shower, but I didn't eat. But anyway, like, yeah, we had these weird moments where like, yeah, is it going to work or is it not? But obviously, fortunately, it did work out.
So hold on. So you built a
Random,
blanket
right?
fortress. I thought you told me the story.
Yeah.
You didn't mention the blanket fortress. You were just like, I was on the sofa for like a couple of days, but you built.
Yeah, no. It was a blanket fortress. I think I was quite embarrassed to tell you before, but now I'm like, yeah.
Oh no, you're just telling everyone.
Like
everyone listen to this. So the CEO of Yieldify
I just
built
thought, fuck it, just let it out.
No, okay, no, fair enough. I mean, I think everyone's got their own sort of way of dealing with things, and like whether it's hiding yourself away or like checking into a spa or like there are more destructive things than that, like going on a bender and stuff and misusing substances. So in the grand scheme of things, building a blanket fortress isn't that bad.
Right.
It's fine. But okay, so you built this fortress, and the whole no eating thing. Did you hear about that from like Steve Jobs or something? Because he was quite well known to experiment with different diets and fasting.
I think it was just reading. I think I read some random article. It's like reading, like during when you're just like bored, not bored, but just like you go off on a zone on Google or something, or it was on YouTube, and somehow I found it. I thought, oh, that sounds cool, and then the seed got planted, and I thought, let's test it out because I've done so many business ideas and it's not working. Why not I just try that out?
And at the end of that, did you get some clarity in terms of like what the next steps were?
So what happened was I was in my fortress, and Mills, my brother, came into my little fortress and Jay, it's going to work. I can tell you. And it's like, because like there was this big problem we couldn't solve. And so like literally came to my fortress and he said, look, come out, I need to show you something. And then it was the most like excited I've seen him in a while. So I actually believed him. Yeah. So he could have been pranking me, right?
Yeah.
But he didn't. And then he came out, he's like, look, I solved a big problem. And I was like, oh wow, okay, this is quite cool.
Yeah. All right, so let's fast forward. You got this product, it's working. You got some corporates. You got you've got funding. You become one of the fastest growing tech companies in Europe. What was that like?
Like it got to a point like the business just clicked, and people found out about our product. We started building the relationships with folks, and essentially the product was selling, and it was selling really, really quickly. It got to a point where we couldn't actually deal with the amount of demand. We grew the team to like literally 200 folks. We obviously had some funding in between then as well, which helped us a lot. And it was like that period just happened so quickly. But through that, I think the funding definitely accelerated things from Google Ventures and SoftBank, and
what was that like?
It just meant that
it's crazy. You're like the first company that Google invested in. You got SoftBank. You got like a suite of VCs that everybody would want to have on their cap table. What was that like?
Yeah. I think we're the second investment that Google made, and it was like
whatever.
It was quite. it was quite surreal. It was a bit weird. Like, so we were fun. Like, we were this company that's growing crazy quick. Like, everyone was talking about us, and it was an interesting fundraise process. Like, we did have a lot of people interested, but then a lot weren't interested, and I think that did actually hurt my ego a bit. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I thought, hey, like we've got this amazing business that's growing, and I was like, hey, why don't you want to invest in it? So like, there was a lot of these like, basically finding like a venture capitalist to invest is a bit like dating. So you're meeting lots of people, and you sometimes get surprised, like, hey, like I've got everything. Like, why don't you like me? And then I actually got a lot of rejections.
Well, let's talk about some of the downs, right? So you got this crazy journey. You're getting some kickback.
Straight to the downs. All right, awesome.
It's good for your ego. Like I think that's a good point that you made. That like it was good for your ego to have some rejections, because I know what you're like with imposter syndrome, or whether with you've got sort of blind belief in yourself, or the ability to manifest that belief in yourself. But and either way, that sounds like it was good. It was good for you, but let's talk about the downs, right? Because everyone always talks about like, oh yeah, we started this company and it did really well, and we had some ups and downs. What were the downs, and how did you navigate those?
Yeah, like once we'd raised the money from Google Ventures and SoftBank, I'm not gonna lie, it was like I was like on cloud 9. Like it felt like I was honestly like it was weird, but I felt like I was unstoppable. Like we were on the newspapers, we were getting this great, like, great feedback. Everyone wanted to join the company. I even got invited to like 10 Downing Street. I was winning awards. Like literally, it was like all of this happened so quickly, right? There's some random dude who, remember, built blanket fortresses and like, failed loads of times, and now is now like on like magazines, and I'm just like, what the hell's going on? And what happened was is that we actually grew too quickly at Yieldify. Like we scaled super quick. Like, and that time to grow that quickly was just, you're either it's either going to be like the most incredible company, or there's an issue and there's going to have to be a change, right? And unfortunately, what happened was we just grew too quickly. What happens in, like, basically when you're doing a startup, you have to do forecasting, right? And what happened was we missed one of our quarters, and when you miss a quarter, that means there's going to be, unfortunately, some change that needs to happen. Either you're going to have to readjust the whole model, or you're going to have to reduce the people on your team. And unfortunately, like, that's what happened to us. It was probably the most humbling experience. And like, I had to, we're a team of 200, and I had to basically lay off some of my team. It was like 25-30 people. And I still remember it. It was like, it still gives me shivers. Like, me just talking about it, I can like feel it inside me. Because what was really hard was, I think it was the right thing. I actually decided to have the one-to-one conversation with the folks that I had to leave the company. And I think out of the 25-30 conversations, I did the majority of them. And that was I felt like it was the right thing to do, to hear it from me, because I'd let the team down. And I still remember. So once you do a layoff, there's different ways like to do it. And it's horrible, but it's like you tell the people, and then you've also got, then after you've given the sad news to the folks who aren't with the business, you then have to go to the existing team and let them know, and they're really sad as well, because their team members are no longer going to be there. So at that moment, you go tell everyone else. So you've had like these really like tough conversations, and then you then go meet the team. Honestly, obviously some people are going to get emotional and cry, and like it's hard. They're like, when you're in a startup, it's like your family. So when I went and told the team, like, I remember at that moment, it was honestly like, it was the first time I had to do this. And honestly, I was actually had tears in my eye, but I didn't release it. I was scared, because at that time, I think in my mind, I thought I was like unstoppable still. I was going through this weird moment in my mind. I was like, okay, I'm still this unstoppable person, but actually deep down, I was like really sad. If I go back, I probably would have cried for like 10 minutes while giving the speech, when actually the speech was a couple of minutes. But I just held it in.
Yeah, that sucks, man. I mean, like, you showed, not to big you up too much, but like, you showed a lot of maturity by wanting to have those conversations yourself. I think, like, as somebody in their late 20s, probably would have shied away from having to tell people bad news like that, and just get other people to do it on your behalf. But I think that shows a lot of maturity in that respect. But I guess what I want to know is how you picked yourself up after that, because that would have been a tough thing to do, to realize, and then also galvanize the team and keep that sort of trajectory going and that sort of movement in the right direction, because you still had a responsibility to them as well as your investors to make this a success, right?
Yeah, 100%. It was like, I just, in a weird way, like, I think it's actually probably through all my previous failures, I knew I had to get back up, right? I didn't have time I had to just focus on what was important. So what happened was, when you do get lots of funding, you do get a bit clouded. You start, like, because you got more money, you can start making all these different bets and like look at different opportunities. And we just went back to the basics. It's such a simple thing, and it's always what everyone guides you. We went back to the basics and really just focused on a few things. Like, before, we're focused on 10 things, we just focused on 3 things. And at the same time, we just made sure we had the right people working on the right things. And at the same time, just, I think what was really important, just being absolutely honest. I think we'd hide a lot of information at times. I think that's what tends to happen. Like, when you're in a startup, like, you probably lose a bit of transparency, because you might not even know what's going on. So I think that's the hard thing. A lot of people don't actually know what's going on, so they can't be transparent. But I think whatever we did know, we'll just be open and share it. And I think that really helped, and that helped us get back into a stage of growth.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to bookmark those things, right? So what you did to pick yourself up, you reduce your to-do list, 10 things, 3 things. in
Yeah,
terms
yeah,
of hierarchy of
yeah,
importance.
yeah,
You consolidated the team
yeah,
around
yeah,
this central idea, and you
yeah, yeah,
basically, gave them clearer
yeah,
directions. And then also, you were transparent and honest in your communication. So I think
yeah,
those
yeah,
three things are really good takeaways for anyone, like
yeah,
regardless of their
yeah,
position, right there.
yeah. No, definitely. I think you've summarized it really well, and I think it's just like getting that mask off. It's weird. It's like when we're at work, I feel like it's like it's weird. Like when we're with friends, we're really open and honest about everything. But when we're at work, whatever, we just think it's like a different world, right? And I realize that, hey, like these guys are my friends as well. And why not just be absolutely honest? So I feel, yeah, you just got to get that. It's all connected. It's all one. Like whether you're at work or outside of work. And I think that was a big lesson I learned. It's just it's all one. Just be open. Be that human you want. And that was the human I wanted to be at work as well.